page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, and page 9. I can't see any hands being raised, so can I have somebody to propose that they're accurate record, please? Thank you, Gareth Sandilands. Thank you, Jeff Evans. Will you all show that you agree, please? And despite there being 9 pages of minutes, I can't see any matters arising that aren't covered by reports on today's agenda, unless anybody can spot something that needs reference to. No, I can't see any hands being raised. So in that case, we go on to item number 7, which is the Chair's report. So you'll have received my quarterly report, which gives details of the meetings and events I've attended together with the Deputy Chair. There's just one thing I'd like to add to my report. I don't know if everybody's aware, but Councillor Sharon Dolman has had to step down as she's been appointed to the new cabinet in Conway. And I'd just like to sort of put on record my thanks to Sharon, who's very faithfully served the authority, has been very involved, and was also our EDI champion. And we will need to appoint a new EDI champion, preferably a female member, to have some sort of balance in terms of diversity, and that we will be asking interested persons to submit their names shortly. But sincere thanks to Sharon for all her excellent work on the authority. Are there any questions or comments in relation to the report, please? No, I can't see any hands being raised. So we go on to item number 8, which is the cultural improvement to promotions process. And Chief, I think you're introducing this item. Diolch.
Yeah. Yes, I've got great pleasure of presenting a deep dive into one aspect that was highlighted in the Crest report, and that is the promotion process. And if you have a look at the contact officer, you will see that the paper has been written by Ellen Hughes, and she has next to her name Cultural Champion. So if I can just explain to members a little bit about that. We decided that it was important that culture should be embedded within the organisation from people within the organisation. So we advertised a development post, a secondment for 6 months for someone to be the cultural champion. And we had a lot of interest and some really good applications. And in the end, we appointed Ellen Hughes, who is an HR senior officer. And we also appointed Tom Weston, who is a station manager recently from the fire safety department, but before that he was on Mill Station. So both of them bring a lot of knowledge of the organisation, and they started at the end of September, and they've certainly hit the ground running. And one of the tasks that I asked Ellen to produce was actually an information that has been used with our employees so that we can remind them just what has changed over the last 4 years. And this paper will be revised and will be going on to Welsh Government and the Social Partnership Forum. So I'm not intending to go through the whole paper because I'm sure you've read it. But what I wanted to do was just sort of summarise our journey. Now, this hasn't been just from the time of the Crest report. Those members that were on the Fire Authority back in 2021, you will remember that there was a bit of concern around our promotion process at that point in time. And that was because all operational promotion boards were chaired by the Chief Fire Officer. And although that brought consistency, what it also brought was an element of people could perceive it to be subjective. And so there was also a concern around the fact that a number of people did not meet the standards when they went through those processes. And so they were in temporary posts for many years sometimes. And one of the things that I needed to do, one of the quick wins, was to resolve that. So a new promotion process was devised back in 21. And that process sought to bring the board, the people that attended the board, to the level just above the person who was being interviewed. So they would have much more closer knowledge of that person. And we also brought in a system that wasn't just pass or fail. It was green. Yep, you're ready to go. And the next role that's suitable for you, you will be promoted into it. Amber, we think you have some development needs, but we certainly think that you are suitable for temporary promotion. And red, that person needs some more development. And in fact, that's partly the ethos that's now around our promotion boards, is that everybody gets advice and development, whether they are red, amber or green. The whole approach is now, how can we support and develop and educate people so that they're successful at the promotion board, rather than it being seen as a stress test. So we brought in this new system, and we started late in 21 appointing to the vacant Deputy Chief Fire Officer role, and then we went through all the roles to crew and watch managers, and by April 2022 we had over 100 of those temporary vacancies filled. So we weren't going to rest on our laurels after that. So you can also see in the paper that we have had people in to check on our progress. We have had information from the candidates so that we can improve the systems. We have introduced for the benefit of those employees who have maybe neurodiverse needs, everybody has the opportunity to see the questions 30 minutes in advance in order to give them that thinking time. And we've also introduced a system of making sure that we can't identify who is putting in the application forms, and so that there's no bias that comes through in the initial scoring. So yes, I think our success can be shown at the number of people who come forward to participate in the promotion process. And we have just finished the crew and watch manager interviews for this year. And I think we had about 57 people came forward. So that's brilliant. That's absolutely what we want to see. People wanting to engage in the process, wanting to be future leaders of this organisation, and we'll make sure that we keep on improving. And as you can see in the paper, we're already getting further advice from external expertise. So Chair, I'm happy to take any comments or questions that member might have. Thank you. Diolch.
Thank you, Chief. Any comments or questions for the Chief in relation to this report? Anne, would you like to come in? And Councillor Anne Davis? Councillor Davis, can you hear me? Do you want to come in?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened again. You mentioned that you had staff in temporary posts for years. How seriously did you look at their well-being during that period? Their confidence and that sort of thing, if I'm understanding it right?
And you're quite right. It has a detriment to people's morale and enthusiasm for the role. This was prior to 2021, and since then we've brought in a new policy which limits the time that people are temporarily in role from between 6 months to 12 months, which also then gives other people with an amber pass the opportunity to have temporary promotions, which is another important thing as well. So it's something that we're very mindful about, and since 2021 we have ensured that it does not continue for years. Thank you.
Chair, for me.
Yeah, Councillor Mark Young.
Yeah, Jock and Varro, thank you, Chair. Sorry, my hand wouldn't go up. So, yeah, thank you, Chief. It's really good to read, all positive, but just got a couple of questions which will help us visualise the journey. So, how will success and cultural change how will that be measured? And what independent assurances are in place or going to be put in place to evidence fairness, please?
I think the opportunity, first test of opportunity, is through the Fire Family Survey, which is a staff survey that we undertake every 2 years. And we're actually out at this moment in time asking employees their views. So through that, not only is there an opportunity to sort of say how you feel about it, and it's also gives some open text which enables us to understand if people are beginning to trust the process more. You know, the time scale from 2022, when we brought the initial changes in, to the CREST report, which was in 2024, was only 2 years. That's not a very long time for people to build up trust in a process. So this will be another opportunity to ask people. And I think that what's important is that we play back so that people can remember where it's been, what it's moved to, and the fact that we are not resting on our laurels, and that we really genuinely want to hear from people who go through the process. How was it for you? Did you get the support beforehand? Have you got the feedback and the support afterwards? You know, this is not about putting people off. This is about encouraging them to participate in our promotion boards.
And just that independent reviewing.
Yeah, and again, you know, we're bringing expertise in. Helen, I know you've commissioned, because I can't remember the name of the organisation, to come in and analyse what we do.
Yes, we've engaged with a HR specialist, and during the very recent promotions process for Crew and Watch Manager, they've reviewed the whole process. That's everything from the job description being advertised right through to the appointments being made. We haven't had the full results of that yet, but we anticipate there will be opportunities for further improvement, and our commitment is to receive that feedback and seek to carry on that improvement journey, because I think this is very much an iterative process. I think we have to recognise that as people's confidence grows, there will be further opportunities.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Jen, and it reads really positive, so well done all. It's nice to read. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. And if I can just add that Mark, as the Deputy Chair, and myself did have a meeting with union representatives last week in terms of a liaison pre-meet before this meeting, and there was positive feedback received in relation to the changes in the process, especially the independent input. I can't see any other hands being raised. The recommendation is that we note the progress being made. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Mark. A seconder? Diolch, John Brynmawr. Will you all show that you approve? Diolch yn fawr. So we move on to the next item, which is item number 9, which is the Training Centre project update. And over to Assistant Chief Fire Officer Justin Evans. Thank you, Justin.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. So today's paper presents members a strategic update on the progress of the Services Training Centre project following the September meeting of the project board. The project remains broadly on track in terms of scope and quality expectations. However, there are some ongoing uncertainties around both the timeline and the budget, and these are largely driven by ecological constraints of the site and the need to finalise our costings and scheme. That said, please be assured that these are known risks and we are actively managing and controlling those, and we continue to make steady progress across all key work streams. From previous meetings, members may recall that we've been working with Mersey Internal Audit to provide independent and expert support in developing the outline business case using the HM Treasury 5-case model, which is the standard for public sector investment proposals. And this work will ensure that our proposed scheme meets public sector standards and results in a credible and fundable case, and one that aligns with Welsh Government's expectations. Now, this outline business case is scheduled for completion for presentation at the authority meeting in January, and we'll be asking for ratification of the proposed scheme, and this will underpin our capital funding position and allow us to move forward with greater certainty. Since I presented proposals in December 2024, design development has continued. The revised scheme reflects feedback from staff and their representatives and incorporates environmental and sustainability priorities. We've improved access, we've updated our training configurations, and we've introduced spaces for multi-agency use. So these changes are intended to future-proof the facility and ensure it meets both our operational and our strategic needs. Now, these revised designs are being considered by the project board, and alongside this, detailed financial modelling work is underway to support our outline business case. And we're working very closely with our contractors and our advisors to ensure that the cost options are robust, that they're realistic and they align to our expectations. Now, there will be an opportunity for members to meet with the project board and the project team before the authority meeting in January, so that members can better understand these proposed revisions to the scheme that was previously outlined. Now, in terms of current site activity, ground clearance works have started on site in October, and fencing has been erected. This work has been completed under ecological supervision, with particular attention to the management of great crested newts, which remain a protected species on site. On the communications front, the project has improved the communications and engagement strategy, and this includes a phased approach to stakeholder engagement and public consultation. And a dedicated public website is being prepared and will launch in January 2026. And we'll be making sure that bilingual materials are provided and making sure that we encourage inclusive engagement. Social value remains a priority for us, and targets have been embedded in contractor agreements with a focus on local engagement and outcomes that are measurable. And these are going to be monitored and reported through to our project board as part of our wider governance. So looking ahead, all being well, construction is scheduled to complete in May 2029, with formal construction closure and handover expected 6 months later. But we've got a long journey to go to get to that point. And we have added potential delays to our risk register, given the potential impact on funding and future decision making. So I'll just briefly touch upon the implications as detailed in the paper. The project supports our organisational objectives for improvement, wellbeing and community safety, as outlined within the Community Risk Management Plan for 25 to 29. Legal compliance is being actively managed across all phases, including procurement, planning, ecology and environmental legislation. And we're working closely with our advisors to ensure that all statutory obligations are being met. Staff and staff representation has been strong throughout. Their input has really shaped the design principles and helped ensure that the facility reflects operational needs. We've got a further engagement planned, and we're considering additional support within our team to maintain our delivery capacity. Risks continue to be monitored and managed, and these include unresolved capital funding, staff turnover and capacity pressures in terms of workload. But we've strengthened our governance, we've clarified delivery roles, and we've appointed a dedicated budget holder. We're looking to develop a detailed financial dashboard and a formal estate strategy being developed as part of the business case. So before I close for questions, I would just like to reiterate that our next major milestone for this project will be the presentation of the outline business case and financial modelling to the authority meeting in January. But I'd like to provide assurance to the members that whilst we will be seeking a commitment to continue to the next stage of this project, Ratification by the authority in January is the first of several gateways. This means it's not a final binding commitment to deliver the project. Its overall financial commitments project occurs at a later stage, Group Stage 4, once we have our detailed technical designs completed and our contract price has been agreed. And this isn't expected until summer 2027. So we do have a lot of work to do before then. But we can only commit to this project once we know it's affordable and it can be funded. So in summary, whilst we are having challenges with the project remains deliverable within the expected parameters. We're taking a very proactive and sensible approach to risk management, stakeholder engagement and financial oversight.
Thank you, Justin. And just to remind members that our authority representative on the project group is Councillor Gareth Sandilands. Any questions or comments, please? I can't see any hands being raised. Obviously, there'll be a lot more meat on when we see the outlined business case coming before us in the next authority meeting. It's a really exciting project, and looking forward to seeing the further information in due course. Can I have somebody propose that we note the report, please? Thank you, Deputy Chair. Thank you, Jeff. Will you all show that you agree? That's been approved. So we go on to the next item on the agenda, which is the emergency cover review update. And I think it's Mike Plant, Head of Planning Formation, who's presenting this. Over to you, Mike.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm delighted to present the emergency cover review due to the fact a lot has happened since the last time that we reported to the authority on the 21st of July 2025. Since that time, we've actually started a pilot described within the collective agreement that members will recall and that we shared with you, with a number of changes that I will discuss. Some will be starting on the 1st of January 2026, so not every single one, but a lot of them are now in place. One of the main ones is commencing the changing to the start and finish times at all our whole time stations. This has enabled us to provide resilience and for personnel to move between stations on the day shift to cover things like short-term sickness, etc. The collective agreement implementation group have been working hard to have agreement with the representative bodies on a number of a policy suite that details the principles and working practices of the new collective agreement as to how it works in practice. And these documents are now to go through the formal consultation process. And in fact, I've had it confirmed this morning that it is being launched today. We've implemented the move from our promotion boards that the Chief mentioned earlier, as well as all the changes that were driven through the CREST report, etc., through the collective agreement that's been moved for supervisory managers to earlier in the annual calendar. That means that latest in the calendar, in such a way as that once those individuals take up their posts, it will be in the new year and it won't affect annual leave in the way that it does now and causing problems for us and reducing resilience. This is also to be expanded to all the different management levels during 2026, so that all aligns from principal officer level all the way down to supervisory managers. Members will also be aware that there's been a process to ensure that 12 on-call firefighters went through a migration process into whole-time positions. I'm delighted to declare that that is now in place, and at the two nuclear stations at Dolgellau and Porthmadog are now providing day cover from Monday to Friday each week, which is a vast improvement on the fire cover in that area. Also, members will note that we purpose to backfill the whole-time rural system, and we've been able to successfully do that, and that is also having a positive effect daily due to the numbers being full and those individuals being able to put appliances back on the run. So we mentioned that earlier that the pilot for Porthmadog and Dolgellau has started. Just a little bit more information about things that we're doing there. There's regular visits by the head of response and other key officers to make sure everything's going smoothly. We've had regular visits from the facilities team as well that are working with the staff there to ensure that welfare is prioritised, and also they're looking at drawing up a number of plans for improvement to the actual structure of those stations in order to make things more comfortable and to ensure that the workplace is as good as it can practically be. We've also thought ahead and created a standard agenda with the rep bodies through the collective agreement group to review the pilot as we move forward in line with social partnership principles, in order to make sure that all the relevant data is captured to ascertain whether the pilot is performing successfully, and we'll continue to do that. The section on observations from the Executive Panel Audit Committee, just to confirm, this report hasn't been presented to the Exec Panel or Audit Committee to date. The implications are that our wellbeing objectives, the ECR, ties in with the wellbeing objectives under the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act to create a prosperous Wales, and a number of others. I won't name them all, but by improving fire cover and increasing those quality employment opportunities, the positive effect is obvious. Staffing, we continue to work with staff and the rep bodies, and continue to do so via the joint consultation and negotiation committee. If there's any issues or any welfare things that are brought up there, that can be dealt with, and we continue to promote this process via weekly brief articles, etc. Looking at risks, the risk of the ECR not being, coming into place was obvious. That has been recorded on the strategic risk register. The gross score has been reduced massively now due to all the work that's happened, so that that risk is being managed successfully. So at that point, I'd like to just say that looking forward, we're confident that the further changes from the 1st of January will come into place. With managing all the little teething problems, etc., that are bound to arise with any changes at the moment, and learning from that. And we continue to meet on a fortnightly basis to make sure that the whole project is a success. So I'm quite happy to take questions at this point.
Thank you, Mike. So I'll throw it open to members for comments and questions. Councillor Paul Cunningham, you've got your hand raised. I don't know if that's a legacy hand or not.
I pressed it earlier on, Chair, and I forgot to release it.
No problem at all. Glad that you were able to join us at the end, Paul. Thank you. Chief, did you want to come in?
Yes, I just wanted to say that the emergency cover review seems to be gone on for a very long time, and sometimes you can forget what it is that we wanted to achieve. And it was that improvement in emergency cover in rural areas, which is why we selected these station locations to pilot the nucleus crewing. And I also want to emphasise that this is not a takeover. This is working closely with our retained duty system firefighters on those stations to make sure that we have the best cover that we can in our more rural areas. And, I can only just thank both our colleagues in the Fire Brigades Union, but also Mike's team, who have worked so hard to be able to come to an agreement and to implement the changes that enable this to happen. So that's all I would say. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and I echo those comments. Just before I invite other members to contribute, if I can just pick up on, obviously, yes, the whole purpose is to improve cover in these rural areas. Is it too early to ask for some statistical data in terms of the availability in places like Porthmadog and Dolgellau compared to what the situation was before, or do we need to wait a bit longer before getting that data through?
Just to confirm, Chair, that's a great question, and obviously with a lot of skin in the game, so to speak, I look daily at the availability matrix that comes out, and it is really pleasing to see that obviously, you know, Dolgellau and Porthmadog are on every day, but also you see the side effects that because we're not having to send people to those areas to put them on, those people are now going to, or the rural are going to other areas and putting other appliances on. So there has been I've noticed an increase in appliance availability. However, the green shoots of improvement are definitely there, but we haven't really had enough data to look at it, you know, across even a half-year period. The pilot came in on September the 2nd, and we're in 20th of October now. So whilst has been a improvement, we haven't got data to be able to present to the Fire Authority at this moment because we're doing it on a quarterly basis. So the first quarterly review meeting we have, we'll collate that, and that will be available for members.
That's great. So yes, obviously, if we can have that data for the January meeting, and also I would ask that we have some data in relation to how the overtime budget has been impacted. You know, whether it's gone up or down, that would be really helpful. So over to members. Cynghorydd Gwynfor Owen.
Diolch, Mr. Cadeirydd. Because I made the point about the interpretation before the meeting started, can I just make the point again and ask for it to be minuted that I am unhappy that there is no interpretation today, but because of the exceptional circumstances, I accept that everything was done to try and get interpretation in place, and therefore I am willing to speak in English, but I would like it minuted so that we make sure it doesn't happen again, please. Yeah. And then just to go on, you asked the question I was going to raise regarding the data, Mr. Chairman, but further than that, when we were discussing everything in the first place, we did have projections of what we thought the new system would look like, which the system we voted against, and how we would improve things. Are the projections for the Porthmadog and Dolgellau projects now, are they as good as they were in that original plan?
So looking at the original plan, the different options that were there, the current situation is not the same as that, because at that time we looked to utilise whole-time members of staff from RIL and Deeside and 24 stations, for example, to move across and provide that cover. But it has achieved an improvement in availability in rural fire cover, but by a different format, if that makes sense.
You're on mute, Mr. Chairman.
I think that clarifies the situation, Mike. It's not as sort of deliverable as it would have been before with one of the options that we're looking at, but it's certainly an improvement in the right direction. Chief, did you want to come in and say something?
I was just going to say the same thing. We've achieved partly what we wanted to achieve, and we've achieved it through consensus. But no, it doesn't deliver quite to the extent that the original proposal would have done.
Diolch. Cynghorydd John Ivan Jones.
Thank you, Chair. My connection is dropping in and out, and I'm leaving the meeting, then coming back in. So apologies if I've missed any information that I'm going to ask. It was just a quick question about, especially Dolgellau and Porthmadog. Did I hear it right that it's Monday to Friday? So my question was just in an area where heavy on wildfires and things like that, as we've discussed in previous meetings, how does the weekend Monday to Friday?
Oh, Okay, I missed a couple of words there, Councillor. Apologies. What I would say is, apologies. I should have made that more clear. So traditionally, we don't struggle in those stations to have fire cover in the evenings and weekends because people tend to be at home. You know, they tend to go out of the village or the town to work and then return in the evenings. So the fire cover then or generally across the area is not a concern of those times for the majority of the time. It's the day time that has been the challenge, as members are aware. So by having those staff working the 9-day fortnight system rather than a 4-on-4-off system, what we're doing is filling that gap that is traditionally very difficult to fill, which is, you know, sort of school run time in the morning till 4:30, 5 o'clock when people are returning from work. So this shift has made a great improvement in that way.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah, Councillor Gareth Sandilands.
Yeah, thank you. My question is regarding communication. The Chief has already mentioned consensus. I just want to test out how well that consensus is. What's the latest position with the unions on this? And also, has any initial feedback been received from our staff? This is a grassroots approach as opposed to perhaps a change of style from the last cover review, let's say. I just wanted to know the feedback that we've had from the people who are most concerned about this previously.
So as a service, we're really grateful of the engagement by staff and the rep bodies, because I can say as the chair of the collective agreement implementation group, lots of things come back via the rep bodies, brought in concerns, questions, sometimes things that you know, rumours start, etc., about things that aren't correct. So we, on a fortnightly basis, discuss all of those and ensure that the correct message goes back, and then it goes back both that way and through our official means, such as our weekly briefs and communiques, etc. There have been some challenges in that some staff have brought up to us challenges regarding childcare when they changed the start times. They'd already ordered their lives in such a way as to manage that, and then of course with any change that can be challenged. But what we've done is asked our CAIG members to go back to the local managers and just to come up with local solutions, and that's been happening. People have been coming in, and if someone has got a particular problem, covering an individual, for example, so that they can take their child to work or whatever. So there have been challenges, but nothing that we haven't been able to manage.
Okay, thank you for that.
Cynghorydd John Brynmar Hughes.
Yes, it's been a difficult time during this period, and I'd like to congratulate Mike and all the team and everybody involved in the negotiations. And it's good to see that at last we've got an understanding with the unions and with the retained firemen, and it's good to see that we have got progress. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.
Diolch, John Brynmar. I can't see any other hands being raised, so I'm going to move to the recommendations. There's 3 recommendations for members. Number 1, note that officers continue to work with representative bodies in social partnership following the recent signing of the collective agreement. Number 2, note that the collective agreement pilot commenced on the 2nd of September 2025, aligning start and finish times at all whole-time stations and the relocation of whole-time firefighters to Porthmadog and Dolgellau fire stations. And 3, note that the CAIG will continue to monitor and review how the collaborative arrangement improves rural fire cover, managing any issues that arise during the period of the pilot. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Paul Cunningham. Thank you, John Brynmar. Will you show that you all agree? Diolch yn fawr. That's been passed. So we move on to the next item, item 11, which is the updated financial regulations for approval, which I understand has previously been considered by the Audit Committee. Over to ACFO Helen MacArthur.
Diolch, Chair. Yes, this item relates to the updated financial regulations, and today we're seeking approval. It's the first of a number of financial reports on the agenda today, and as the Chair has just confirmed, it's already been through to the Audit Committee. Underpinning the authority's financial governance, the financial regulations provide that robust framework of financial control. Our current regulations were initially approved in March 2022, and this revision is required to update for new legislation such as the Economic Crime Act, updated procurement procedures, some new technical accounting standards such as IFRS 16, as well as updates to recognise the digitisation of many processes. And for example, we now routinely pay all of our staff and our suppliers through electronic means, and very rarely do we need to raise a cheque. As mentioned, the regulations on the agenda today have been scrutinised by the Audit Committee, and the committee endorsed the document for approval by yourselves. The framework is actually very far-reaching. It sets out roles and responsibilities, separation of duties, delegation and authorisation limits, and importantly, ensuring that there's financial assessment of all of our decisions. There's been a couple of items on the agenda today where that's played out. So by way of an example, the emergency cover review, at every meeting of the CAIG group or K group, there was a financial representative, and that's ensuring that where proposals are put forward, there is in the background work being undertaken so that we understand the immediate financial consequences and the long term. And I think it's really important to recognise that the regulations are sufficiently comprehensive that they cover the whole life cycle. It goes from forward planning through to the approval of the revenue and the capital budgets, budgetary control, and then finally that delivery and that reporting. Chair, with your agreement, I'd like to move to the recommendation, which is that members of the Fire Authority note and approve the financial regulations, and I'm very happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. So I'm going to hand over to the Chair of the Audit Committee, Councillor Gareth Sandilands, who's raised his hand. Gareth?
There we
You're
go.
on
Thank
mute,
you.
Gareth.
Thank you very much. We did consider this as part of our agenda at previous meeting, and it's really a comment, really. It's like treacle going through financial regulations sometimes, but I'd like to thank Elgin, Helen and the team for the ongoing work and understanding and ensuring we adopt this and operate it, because this is the parameters of the law. This isn't our rules, this is the external rules, and as a group we are responsible as a collective. So I'd like to say thank you very much for all the work you've done, and hopefully we can go forward from today. Notice the Treasurer's got his hand up, always full of advice.
David, croeso chi dod I fewn.
Yeah, diolch cadeirydd. Thanks, Chair. Just eilio be sydd cael ei ddeud, gwir, just seconding what's been said already, that the Audit Committee did give these good going over, and myself and the officers looked at them beforehand. And just to repeat the thanks to Elgan and Helen and the team for the modernisation of the financial regs, really, and probably a little bit overdue for looking at, but now all the work's been done. So I would recommend that you, as an authority, approve these. Diolch.
Diolch, David. So you've heard the recommendation that we note and approve the regulations. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Mark Young. Thank you, Gareth. Will you all show you? So we move on to the next item, which is Audit Wales putting out future fires report for approval. And it's back to you, Justin, please. Diolch.
Yes, thank you. Paul Kay, Berry Manager Paul Kay is on the call today, so Paul will be presenting on this item. Are you there, Paul?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Diolch, Chair. Bore da pawb, Paul Kay dwi. Good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Kay. I'm the Head of Fire Safety here in North Wales. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to provide a brief overview of our response to the recent Audit Wales report putting out future fires, which reviewed our prevention strategy. Firstly, I want to acknowledge the positive recognition in the report. It highlights that we have a solid foundation in our prevention work, particularly in how we target vulnerable households, but it also rightly challenges us to go further, to be more inclusive and more data-driven. Audit Wales made two key recommendations. Firstly, that we strengthen the identification of high-risk individuals especially those in isolated situations, and ensure inclusive engagement. And secondly, that we improve understanding of the value added by prevention activity to support resource targeting and demonstrate value for money. We've taken significant steps to identify those most at risk. We use a combination of data sources, NHS information, historical incident data, referrals from 69 partner agencies, and most importantly, the use of Exeter data, which identifies residents in North Wales over the age of 65, to build a picture of vulnerability across North Wales. From a fire safety point of view, I'm also very pleased to have greater coverage across Dolgellau and Porthmadog. But we recognise data has its limits, and that's why we've listened to feedback from our operational teams and started conversations with our colleagues in Mid and South Wales, Mid and West and South Wales, and our aim is to align our definition of high risk across Wales. This will help us ensure consistency, improve comparability, and ultimately better target our resources. We're also revisiting our internal thresholds. At present, only 29.4% of our home safety checks undertaken are classified as high risk. If we adjust our approach, we could see a significant opportunity to increase the number of high-risk visits and referrals managed by our staff and home safety support workers within the prevention department. The second recommendation focuses on value for money, and we will continue to develop our use of data to better understand the communities we serve through geospatial mapping, overlaying incident data with our prevention activity. We will also look to develop our understanding of the cost benefit of the interventions that we provide. Looking to the future, we have listened to members and will look to explore the opportunity of artificial intelligence and predictive analytics to support our learning of emerging risks. In closing, I want to reaffirm that North Wales Fire and Rescue Service welcomes the findings of the Audit Wales report and is committed to acting on its recommendations. We recognise the importance of sharpening our targeting, improving inclusivity, and demonstrating the value of our prevention work. Diolch. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Paul. I see that Mr. Cameron Rees from Audit Wales is attending this meeting. I don't know if Cameron, if you've had any involvement in this report and wanted to make any comments. Diolch.
I did. Thank you, Cadeirydd. No, we presented the report to Governance and Audit Committee last month, and Paul has presented and represented the report fairly, so nothing to add to Paul's presentation there. Diolch.
Diolch, Cameron. So over to members for any comments or questions. Councillor Ann Davis.
Okay, can you hear me now, Chair? Yeah, okay. I'm just checking. You mentioned safety in the community for the vulnerable, etc. How do you obtain that confidential information from the Health Board? We have so many people now in the community, living in the community, oxygen dependent. How do you go around that sort of thing? Thank you.
Diolch, Councillor. So we receive multiple referrals from our partner agencies on a daily basis. And as I've mentioned, we have the Exeter data list, which also provides us with information of those people over the age of 65. Every day, our fire stations, our fire operational crews go out and visit our communities, but also our home safety support workers who are trained to work closely with complex cases, and those most vulnerable are undertaken each and every day. That said, we will continue to further our improvement in understanding where those vulnerabilities lie. I recently attended a regional partnership board and made contact with the operations manager from Betsy Cadwallader as to how we can further identify those who are most vulnerable and provide a better service to the communities that we serve.
Chief, do you want to come in? Thank you.
Yes, I was going to say, in the past, Paul, I know we were notified by oxygen suppliers when they delivered cylinders. Does that still happen?
Absolutely, Chair. Absolutely, Chief. Yes.
Could I come back in there, Chair? You mentioned people over 65. What about the under 65?
Dear Councillor, yes, what we do is we look at the data that's provided, and we recognise not only in North Wales but across the sector that people who are most vulnerable are over the age of 65 for accidental dwelling fires, house fires, and so it is those that we will primarily target. That said, we are out in the communities each and every day, and when we do come into contact with residents who require fire safety advice, we will, of course, willingly give it.
Thank you.
So obviously we're going to be addressing the recommendations that have been presented by Audit Wales. So how will we be monitoring progress? Will we be devising an action plan with RAG status? How will we take this forward?
Diolch, Chair. Yes, we will be first and foremost, we've begun conversations with our operational teams as to how we can further improve targeting vulnerable people. We certainly need to recognise the improvement around the 29.4% of high-risk referrals, and that will be carried out every month when we monitor the number of safe and well checks that we've taken place. As we do every quarter, when we provide a performance update to SLT and to the wider authority, we can then provide that feedback as to what our performance looks like.
Yeah, are there any other comments or questions from members?
Chair, if I can, very quickly. So it mentions, yeah, Giacomo, thank you. Yeah, so good report, and I'm lucky enough to have seen a resident of mine who was supported by the authority, so it's really important. So Paul, thanks to you and your team. But it's quite clear that the grants are under pressure, so it's just confirmation if the grants to make sure we're supporting this with the right resources. Would that be in place, Paul, if needed?
Sorry, Councillor, I just missed the middle part.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry, I disappeared then. If the grants did become under pressure and we lost them, it's just confirmation we would have to chat financially as an authority to make sure we make a joint decision on the best way to fund this important work going forward.
Dear Councillor, yeah, that's of course that would happen. We have very strong relations with Welsh Government, who we meet on a quarterly basis to talk around the grant provision for home safety. And I think what's really important about this report is that we are being challenged to be more creative and identify opportunities to further target those most vulnerable in our communities.
Okay, Giacomo, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gareth Sandilands.
Yeah, it's just a question regarding who performs these safety checks. Are we saying that our staff are flexible and it's not just a certain limited number that perform these safety checks, but are the workforce are quite skilled? And if not, are we upskilling our whole team to get these safety checks done?
Yeah, Councillor, that's exactly what we're looking to do. I think we need to recognise that our operational staff are professional and capable of identifying those who are vulnerable. We will be making sure that they have the appropriate training to undertake high-risk referrals. They are out in the community every day, liaising with people over the age of 65, and that will enable greater capacity for our home safety support workers to identify the most complex cases.
So if you can just confirm the numbers that we currently have, who are?
We currently have home safety support workers. We have 12 home safety support workers out in the community every day, and then every operational fire station, whole time day crewing will be undertaking prevention activity 2 hours per day.
Thank you.
I can't see any of the hands being raised, so we'll move to the recommendations. There's 3 recommendations. Number 1, note the findings and recommendations of the Audit Wales report. Number 2, endorse the development of a targeted improvement plan addressing the 2 recommendations. Number 3, request a progress update in Q1 2026-27 on implementation actions. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Mark Young. Thank you, Gareth Williams. When you all show that you agree, Diolch yn fawr. That's been passed, so we move on to the next item, which is item 13, the annual performance assessment for 2024-25. And I think it's back to you, Mike Plant, for this. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Thank you very much for the privilege of presenting the annual or report on the annual performance assessment. So just to sort of give a little bit of background again to remind members that there's two main items of legislation that drive the need for this assessment. The first one is that under section 15 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2009, there is a requirement to publish an assessment of the authority's performance, and the assessment should be undertaken annually and published by the 31st of October each year. So that's one. The second one, members will recall that Schedule 1 of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act requires an annual report showing how the authority has progressed against its wellbeing objectives. So the four members will recall as well the format we use to implement that and for it to be accessible and understandable by the community is the Community Risk Management Plan. And the members have previously approved that plan for the 2004 to 2029 time period. The Community Risk Management Implementation Plan, which is for a single year, also sets out the objectives, including how authority fulfills its obligations under that Local Government Wales Measure 2009 and the Wellbeing Act itself. So moving down to some of the things that we look at as part of that annual performance assessment on paragraph 9 of the report. I won't read every one of them, but members can see there that there's that approach is utilised and adopted to make sure that everything is covered. But one of the things that we report on as well in the draft APA for 2024-25 is the number of appliances, operational stations, etc., that the authority are responsible for, and the amount of personnel, etc., that you will see that in the report. Of note is that during 24-25, a total of 14,535 emergency calls were received, resulting in 6,489 incidents being attended. Notably, this included 1,804 fires, 3,264 false alarms, and 1,421 non-fire emergencies, including road traffic collisions. In addition to this, as we've just talked about, the service carried out 17,500 safe and well checks in homes across the region as part of our commitment to keeping our communities safe, as Area Manager Paul Kay so eloquently described. The report itself does contain a progress update as well against each of the 5 principles set out in the CRM IP. So where they affect one of those, it's quite clear as to how they provide progress against it. And we've also mentioned earlier that the authority is a signatory to the All Wales Dwelling Fire Response Charter, which we discussed, and that again provides a framework for improving safety in the home to reduce the number and impact of domestic dwelling fires. So the annual performance audit, as Area Manager Kay explained, helps to show to the public, etc., how we've achieved that. So this annual performance assessment was looked at previously by the executive panel on the 15th of September. And members did at the time express their concerns around the increased numbers of wildfires that we've had. But the content of the report was endorsed for approval by the authority. So thank you very much, Diolch yn fawr, and I'm happy to receive questions if required.
Thank you, Mike. And as you pointed out, yes, this report has been considered by the executive panel. There were concerns about the increase in wildfires, and I think one of the things that we're going to be looking at, hopefully doing, is perhaps have a briefing presentation to members specifically on wildfires in terms of the extent of the problem and how, as a service, we're looking to tackle the problems of wildfires. So we may well have a presentation on that before the next full authority meeting, just for information. Councillor Gareth Sandilands?
Yeah, I mean, it's a perennial question. It's false alarms attended. This is an awful, huge amount of where we spend our time, and it's spending our time with resources limited. How are we going to get this reduced? Is there a plan on doing this going forward since this report was produced? What steps are we addressing as an authority? But what are others doing? Because obviously this is a national concern now, and I'd just like to see what your answers are to this. Thank you.
Mike, I can pick this up.
Thank you.
Okay, Diolch, Councillor. So from a commercial premises point of view, I'm pleased to say that those numbers are dropping, and that's through the continued liaison with the likes of hospitals. From a residential point of view, we have to recognise that there's a greater number of call handling operations being provided in domestic premises, which is a good thing. But I highly recognise the importance of the resource that has been committed when we attend these incidents, and we are in dialogue with those providers to identify how we can be smarter in that approach. Currently, there is a 30-second call handling before operational resources are mobilised, and whilst we would never ever put our local communities at risk, we are looking to see how we can better improve our approach, not only with the call provider, but indeed with the people who live in those premises as well.
And thank you for that. Is there a national approach that we need to be taking, and anybody which shows success nationally on how we're handling this, or is it quite bespoke per authority? I can see the chiefs were raring to go on this.
Only because I was looking up some other research the other day and came across the report that was written by the Assistant Fire Advisor for Wales back in 2015. And this report set out exactly the problem that you are describing, that the resources were being tied up attending automatic fire alarms calls. At that point in time, North Wales Fire and Rescue Service brought a paper to the Fire Authority for a decision in order that we would not attend during the daytime business premises. And you can see the impact that has had on the calls that we do not attend, although we do receive them. It has been very successful, and it has certainly reduced the amount of times we turn out to them. They have subsequently been followed by Mid and West Wales Fire Service and now South Wales Fire Service. But as I say, we've been doing this for 10 years and we've seen the benefits, but we still need to keep working with the providers to make sure that we are keeping on top of these numbers.
Thank you for that.
Hey, Chair, can I come in quickly, please?
Councillor Paul Cunningham has just beaten you to it, Mark. Then
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm concerned about false alarm militias. Do we? I know it's hard to find out who's calling these false alarm militias, but if we do find out, do we prosecute?
Apologies, I was on mute. Apologies, I was on mute. So we recently have been going through a review of the provision we have for legal advice, etc. I don't know whether Paul Kay may come in on that as well, but that we do have recourse to solicitors to carry out prosecutions as and when the need arises. So obviously every case is different. I think we have to take it on a case-by-case basis, whether it is, it could be someone's false alarm due to mental health issues or a massive range of different things. So to say, unilaterally we would prosecute every time, and probably wouldn't be correct. It would be on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. Justin, did you want to come in as well?
Yeah, just to echo Mike's point there. I'm not aware of any recent cases where we've taken work with the police to take forward a prosecution to an individual. But I do remember some historic cases where, as an officer myself, I was regularly mobilised to premises, and these are almost like I think almost described as frequent flyers with some of our partner organisations in the right services. And there really was approach to supporting people. Often the case was, as Mike mentioned there were perhaps challenges with mental health, and I think really it was about getting to the root of the problem rather than the prosecution being the sort of solution to it. But I can check on that, but I'm not aware of any recent cases that have come through.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Paul. Councillor Markian.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously the report, and it's been mentioned about the increase in wildfires, which have a huge impact on the environment and our community. So I know we are doing work, but it'd be good to have a summary of how the service is adapting training, equipment and community engagement to reduce these risks, please.
Yes, I think we can cover all that when we do have the presentation. So the report is just for approval in relation to today's agenda, but certainly this is one of the reasons why we want to drill down into this. Paul, do you want to come back in?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was at a meeting of the Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty the other day, and they showed a brief scenario of the work that we're doing in conjunction with them on wildfires, and it was very interesting, and it's pleased to see that the likes of the AONB, I mean, it's not the AONB now, it's changed its name, but I can't remember what it is. But it's nice to see that the fire authority are getting involved with the likes of these people in trying to attack and, well, put the fires out on moorlands and knock the wildfires down. A colleague of mine said they shouldn't be called wildfires, they should be called arson. He said because they're not just burning off whatever, they're killing sheep, they're killing other things and so on. But that's another story, Chair. But it was nice to see that they are involved in the fire authority in dealing with wildfires.
Yeah, and as you say, Chair, if we are going to touch on this in the future, that's great. But also, someone's had an award recently for joint partnership working with us, so it'd be good to touch on all that when we have the report in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. So the report is just for approval. Can I have somebody to propose, please? Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mark. Will you show that you're in agreement? Diolch yn fawr. So we go on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 14, which is the biodiversity report and plan. I think, Helen, it's back to you for this, please. Diolch.
Diolch. I think this item follows on very nicely from the previous item. We're definitely attending more wildfires, and this definitely has a devastating effect on our region's environment and biodiversity. I think a number of the councillors have set out some of the consequences. In addition to that, we also have a responsibility as an organisation to consider the biodiversity. And what I'd like to do is present the authority's biodiversity report and plan for approval. The document in the papers today, it achieves two things. It takes a backward look for the period 2022 to 25 to show the actions that we have taken and the achievements we've made. But it also takes that forward look to show what we're seeking to achieve in the future. It's fair to say there is quite a comprehensive legal background. The Environment Wales Act 2016 mandates us as a public body to have a statutory duty to maintain and enhance biodiversity. And in addition to that, there's new legislation coming through. We have biodiversity targets, and that's strengthened in the Environment Principles Governance and Biodiversity Target Bill. So it's something that we have to take very seriously, and it's something that we should. In terms of looking backwards, we've done a number of things. We've sought to reduce our own pollution, and that's when we do attend incidents. So we've now implemented the use of less environmentally impactful firefighting foams. So it recognises that we still need to use foam to do our job, but we use ones that are less impactful on the environment. In terms of the fuel that we use, we've started the trials on sustainable palm oil-free HVO fuel. That's currently on trial in Deeside, and subject to that trial finishing, it will be rolled out across our fleet. We looked at habitat enhancement. We've created pollinator-friendly habitats at 8 of our fire stations and installed swift nesting on 2 stations. We've actually completed a tree inventory and conducted an ash dieback risk assessment for all of our sites. And our strategic intention now is to embed biodiversity into and core decarbonisation plans for power, heat and fleet. But that's not really enough, and we do recognise the challenge that we've got. So as we move into 25 through to 28, we'll be looking at greening our stations, and that will involve converting at least 15% of suitable mown grassland to wildfire meadows. So anybody that's passed one of our stations in the last few years will probably see that the grass has grown quite high because we have had a no-mow policy, but then we'll be supplementing that. Where we do have ash dieback and we need to cut down trees, our policy is now to replace 1 tree with 2 new native trees. We're going to adopt a biodiversity net gain principle for all capital projects. So whatever capital project we have across our estate, part of the planning for that will be looking at how we can enhance and improve the biodiversity. And equally, across the organisation, we're looking at embedding this cultural approach across our staff. So by way of an example, we're going to have Biodiversity Champions Network. So this has been considered by the executive panel, and they were seeking approval, but they also went one step further, and there was a request that this is reported back to the Fire Authority and the executive panel to ensure that we're actually making the progress that we've set out in the report. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Helen. So over to members for questions and comments. I can't see any hands being raised. Councillor Gareth-Sandilands?
Yeah, I see on page 183 that you've been quite successful in getting grants towards the aim. I want to know what you're going to be doing in the next 12 months proactively to address these costs further. Thank you.
Thank you, very well spotted. Yes, we've been extremely successful. We've had grants to decarbonise our one of our stations in the central area, and we're currently working through a significant grant to do decarbonised Frill site. That's everything from the community site, the offices, through to the fire station. That work is progressing. We've got a very, very good relationship with the Welsh Government Energy Service. A lot of our work is quite innovative because we have to align the work that we do with the other principles that we have, such as decontamination. So when our firefighters go out to an incident, they have to shower within the hour. So whatever we do, and as we move away from gas boilers, we need to make sure that we've got capacity for our staff to shower. Similarly, we have to maintain our appliance bays at a particular temperature, and it's making sure that we use less impactful approaches. So it's definitely something we're doing. Sitting alongside that, we've been very successful in achieving grants to put charging points across our estate. That's for electric vehicles. And as an organisation, we're moving towards moving away from diesel vehicles. Initially, we've gone to hybrid, but as the electric vehicle market improves, we're actually seeking to sort of put more electric vehicles across our organisation. I talk about grant funding. We've reached out to Salix funding, and that's more work where we're going to put solar panels on our roofs. We've done surveys of all of our roofs. We know which roofs will tolerate solar panels. We've identified, I think it's about 12 stations buildings that we'll put solar panels on. and coupled with battery storage, that not only reduces down our electricity need from the grid, it also promotes resilience. So with battery storage, it means in the event of an infrastructure failure, we will have battery that we can keep going for a little bit longer. So it's very much a coordinated approach. It's part of our estate strategy. It's definitely part of our fleet strategy, and it's about those small steps. So definitely a very interesting piece of work that we're very fortunate to have a very proactive environmental manager.
Okay, and I just want to make a point. The environment benefits are great, but obviously it helps with our cost reduction as well. So it's a double-edged thing. So thank you very much. Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Anthony Wren. Anthony?
Okay, we can.
I can see that the microphone isn't working, Anthony, but if you want to put your comments or questions in the chat, we can always pick them up in the chat. Are there any other questions or comments? As has been pointed out, this has been considered by the executive panel. No. Okay, so the two recommendations are that we approve the draft biodiversity report and plan, and 2, approve the continued publication of the report and plan on the services website. Can I have somebody to propose, please? Thank you, Paul.
Chair,
Thank
if
you.
I might, and I might be able to guess what Councillor Wren may be discussing, because I know when it went to the executive panel, Councillor Wren was very clear that we should progress at pace with some of the initiatives, and I know that there we are. I have guessed. He felt very strongly that 2028. We need to put progress in place before 2028, and with the agreement of the Fire Authority, I would like to propose that we provide an annual update on progress made. And I'm hoping, Councillor Wren, that covers your concern.
Right, so we'll add that as a third recommendation as well. So will you all show that you approve? Dear
sorry to interrupt. Sorry, I've just picked up Councillor Wren's message. He's asking if more can be explained on HVO as human cost versus diesel.
I'm embarrassed to say, as an accountant, I don't actually have the detail to hand, but this is something that we can take forward as we roll it out. I'm absolutely grateful that Elgam probably does have the costs.
For that, it's just to come in on the HVO. So the cost of HVO is quite similar to diesel, but what historical trends is showing that there's less fluctuations with HVO than diesel. So yeah, similar cost to diesel. Yes, there's a bit of an implementation cost to set up and set the tanks, but in terms of the ongoing fuel cost, it's sort of on par with diesel.
I think the important thing. Oh, sorry. The important thing to recognise with the HVO is it is derived from a sustainable source, because I understand that there have been some scandals in the HVO market in terms of perhaps not being as environmentally friendly as people hope. So assurance to members that we do get our source certificated.
Okay, thank you for that, Helen. So just to clarify, we've approved both recommendations, but there's also a third recommendation now that we will have an annual progress report to update on what's happening. So we move on to item number 15, which is the response to the Welsh Government consultation on the reform of fire and rescue authorities in Wales 2025. And over to the Chief. Diolch, Chief.
Going to do a double act with the clerk there, but the paper is in his name, but as members are familiar with the background to this consultation around governance in the fire and rescue services in Wales, there has been an interest in this by the Welsh Government for a number of years. And following the intervention in South Wales Fire and Rescue Service back in January 2024, an interim arrangement was put in place to replace the then Fire and Rescue Authority. And I guess as this arrangement comes to a conclusion, then Welsh Government are trying to determine what would be the best governance arrangements to put in place. But of course, given the legislative timetable, and there's very little time before the next elections in May, or any changes need to be achieved within the original combination orders. Now, the combination orders were created in 1996 when 8 fire and rescue services in Wales were brought down to 3. So the proposals that are being consulted upon, they've been split into 4 areas, and one is around the membership of the Fire Authority, the size, and whether there should be appointed independent members. Another area is scrutiny and challenge. A key area is also funding. And then the 4th area was performance management and inspection. And I'd like to thank all members who attended the workshops, the seminars that we held in order to explore these 4 areas. So not only the in-person one on the 29th of September, but also we held an online seminar on the 2nd of October. And after that, members also submitted directly their answers to the questions that are in the consultation. So thank you all for taking a part in that and your active participation. From the information from those seminars and from the questions that you submitted, the answers, we've drafted the attached response. I hope the members have had time to go through those response. And if there are any comments or any revisions that they would like to make to that response, I'd like that to be brought forward now so that we can be in a position to finalise the response, approve it today, and to forward it to Welsh Government by the deadline, which is, I believe, is the 24th of October. So, members, if there is any changes or amendments, or if you'd want to approve this submission, then I'm welcome to hear them.
Thank you, Chief. Any comments or questions from members? I can't see any hands being raised. Obviously, all
sorry,
members
Chair. Sorry, Chair. I can't find my hand at the moment.
Go ahead.
Diolch yn fawr. And I'm sorry because it's taken such a long time to scroll down to get to the papers. I've read the papers before, but I haven't been able to reread them properly before the meeting starts. I would just like to make some points, however, points I made in the workshop we had, the in-person workshop we had in St Asaph. Those are that won't be popular with a lot of people, but I feel I have to make those points. A number of members on the current board is 28. I think that's a ridiculously high number. That needs to be cut down, and it needs to be cut down to either 1 or 2 at the most from each authority. I am against appointed members. I was against appointed members before Friday, but I went to a meeting on Friday, a joint meeting between 2 different organisations which had appointed members. And I think it was 3 members in that meeting that said, oh, we're on both boards. And this is what you have with appointed members, and especially if they're appointed by the government, Welsh Government, you have people that haven't really got an interest in the area, that just got an interest in being board members. So I'm completely against any appointed members. The other point I made in the workshops was that, unfortunately, a lot of our decisions have been made on parochial or for political, be that with a small p or a capital P, reasons rather than what's best for the authority. I believe that also Unfortunately, a few members, and this is my opinion, are still wearing their union hats and see their loyalty to the unions rather than to the authority, and can't differentiate between those 2 points. Now, with those few points, I'm sorry once again, I wasn't able to reread the paper, but I believe those points are important. And I think if we did cut down the number of members, we would more probably then end up with people who are more committed to the whole of North Wales and North Wales Authority rather than just being parochial or political. Yeah.
Yes, Gwynfor, thank you for those comments. I think that it's quite clear that the overall consensus is that there's an agreement that we do need to reduce the members. I think the consensus is that there's an agreement to have appointed members, but certainly not appointed by the Welsh Government. But if you did have appointed independent members, then they hopefully wouldn't be subject to perhaps parochiality, which is what you're concerned about. But thank you for those comments. Before I bring in Councillor Gareth Sandilands, I think the clerk wants to come in. Diolch, Gareth.
Chair, I was going to make the point about appointee, about co-opted members, and the fact that local appointment might avoid the problem that Councillor Owen was describing. Also, Chair, just to confirm to Councillor Owen that all the other points that he made are actually reflected within the comments. There is a suggestion that there should be a reduction in numbers. That is caveated by saying that one per from each of the 6 authorities would be too few. If you added a third, if you added 2 co-optees to that, which would be 1/3 of 6, you'd still only have an authority of 8 members, which would be too few for what the authority is required to do. So those points are in there, Chair.
Thank you, Gareth. Councillor Gareth Sandilands.
Yes, I noticed this has gone to all of our authorities, and I've been asked the question by the authority on my thoughts. I just wanted to know what our relationship is with our authority officers and how we best can support those officers in their response from each individual authority. Thank you.
That's a very good question, Gareth, and I think the answer is that individual authorities are taking different approaches, with some very active in soliciting the views of the Fire Authority members, and others who seem to be just ignoring their views and doing their own thing, to be quite honest. So I don't think that there is an overall answer, but I think the Chief wants to come in.
I just wanted to confirm that as these went out as public documents, I also shared them with the chief executives of each of the county councils, because I knew that some were crafting their own responses, and I also hoped it might prompt those that weren't to reflect and decide whether they wanted to make a submission.
Thank you, Chief. Can I have John Brynmore?
Yes, just to the last matter that we've had a positive with our chief executives and the financial director of Gwynedd Council and the leader of Plaid Cymru, and we've also got a meeting after this meeting this afternoon with them. So that I think Gwynedd will agree. We've had a positive reaction with our leaders in Gwynedd, and they want a further meeting after this meeting this morning. But I strongly agree that I don't like the appointed members. That, when we have been elected, that we should be it should be an elected board and not an appointed board. That lose credibility in my view. And yes, I agree that 1 is not enough, 2 possibly, but definitely not 1. And that I reiterate what I always say. It says we must be an independent North Wales Fire and Rescue Service and not the whole of Wales. It is important that we keep our identity. Thank you.
Diolch, John Brynmore. I can't see any other hands being raised, so I'm going to move to the recommendations, which is that we agree the draft response to submit to the Welsh Government. Could I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Mark. Seconder? Diolch yn fawr. Will you all show if you agree? Diolch yn fawr. We have got a number of items still left on the agenda. I did promise you a comfort break, so I'm going to move to that now. I suggest that you do not log off, but you remain logged on, and just turn your microphone and camera off, and we will resume promptly at 11:30.